For bites and for stings, there are quite a lot of things that have been used to help to relieve these very common ailments. One of the things that would have been used historically would have been Plantago lanceolata, which is ribwort plantain. Now, ribwort plantain is one of those plants that you see all over the countryside, and it's usually something that you'll see bordering footpaths or in people's lawns. And it might also be something that you grow for ornamental reasons, a bit less unusually. So ribwort plantain is essentially classified as a bit of a weed. And the second part of its Latin name, lanceolata, comes from the fact that its leaves look like a spear or a lance. There's another type of plantain as well that would have been used in a very similar way, and that is Plantago major, and that is broadleafed plantain. And as the name might suggest, broadleaf plantain is a very similar plant. It's from the same genus, and it has slightly bigger leaves that are rounded. Now, the way that both of these very, very common weeds would have been used to help relieve bites and stings would be with their leaves being used. And it's a simple thing that even now people can use when they're outside or when they're gardening. And all you need to do is pick a leaf, a fairly decent sized leaf if you can find it, and take that leaf and rub it on the area that has been bitten, or if you've had a mosquito sting or some other kind of insect sting. That brings very, very simple relief and healing to the area, and it helps to take down swelling and inflammation, and it also helps to stop itching as well, those really annoying insect bites that really cause you to scratch and feel uncomfortable. There's something else really useful that you can do with those leaves too, which is especially with the ribwort plantain, the lanceolata one, the one that looks like a spear, if you get a leaf that's big enough, you can actually pick that and wrap it around your finger like a plaster, and then tuck in the very end of it to make a very, very simple but effective outdoor plaster to help to keep that area that's been bitten or stung nice and snug, and also to help to bring about a little bit more relief to the area that's been irritated. Another common leaf that you're going to find out in the wilds, especially around Navenby, is a really beautiful wildflower called the common mallow. Now, common mallow, its Latin name is Malva sylvestris. So malva meaning mallow, and sylvestris meaning wild or sometimes woodland. And in a very similar way, those leaves can be picked when the plant is in flower, and you can rub the leaves on areas that have been bitten or stung by an insect. They have really beautiful purple flowers too, and because the flowers have very similar properties to the leaves, you can even use the flowers to rub onto if you can't find a suitable leaf. You might have already come across a wild plant called chickweed, and chickweed is another very common wild flower or weed. Its Latin is Stellaria media, and chickweed has always been used throughout traditional herbal medicine history as a plant that relieves itching. Even now, there are commercially available creams made that have chickweed as one of their constituents. The way to use chickweed is quite a small plant really, but to pick the plants with the leaves and flowers, crush it up in your fingers, and that should release the lovely healing juices from the stems and from the leaves. And then it's that juice that can then be rubbed onto an area that's been stung so that it can help to take down the inflammation, take down the swelling, and to stop that really annoying itch that can happen. In the spring and summer months, there's a very common tree that we'll often find around the countryside, and this is the elder tree. Elder's known as Sambucus nigra. There are lots of different elders, but it's the black elder that's used. And the leaves, in a very similar way to plantain and to the mallow, if you pick a leaf and rub it on the area that's been stung, the juice of that leaf will help to take down the inflammation and swelling. And also, quite interestingly, it can help to repel mosquitoes and flies. Now, throughout history, this is something that would have happened quite a lot in the countryside. And even now, there are some people who ride horses who tie sprays of elderflowers with their leaves on to a horse's bridle to help to keep the flies away. The leaves have also historically been used, oiled in water, and then that water being used as a very natural garden insecticide against mildew and aphids. And this is certainly something that was very prevalent up until the 1950s here in the UK. Even our common mint plants have a place in history for helping to relieve bites and stings. Back in 1597, it was wrote in a very famous herbal called Gerard's Herbal that bites and stings can be eased by mint. So that's another one that we can try to rub on to a bite or a sting when we get bitten in the spring and summer months. Some of our kitchen ingredients too have a really important value when it comes to home first aid. Something as simple as a bottle of vinegar in our kitchen cupboards can be incredibly useful for all number of things, but vinegar has a really good place to play in helping to relieve wasp stings. If you get stung by a wasp, soak a cotton wool ball in vinegar and then apply that directly to the area that's been stung by the wasp, and that will help to neutralize the wasp sting. Equally, onions have a really useful part in our kitchen medicine cabinet. Onions, on the contrary, are really very helpful for bee stings. If you're not allergic to bee stings and you get stung by a bee, simply pull the bee sting out of the skin very carefully and then gently rub a freshly sliced onion onto the area that's been stung, and you'll find that takes down the inflammation and the swelling and the pain quite a lot. It's really rather remarkable. So it's always good to have an onion and some vinegar in your kitchen cabinets, not only for cooking, but certainly for first aid.